Welcome to Intercom's 2015 Oil and Gas Conference here in Denver, 20th year of the conference. I'm Angie Austin with Oil and Gas 360. We're with Ricardo Garcia-Moreno. He's a partner with Haynes and Boone, and he's going to tell us a little about the law practice to start, and then we'll get into the deep questions. Good morning, Ricardo.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
You are welcome. So tell me about your corporate law practice.
Well, I work at Haynes and Boone. I'm based out of Houston. Haynes and Boone is a 500-person law firm with offices all over Texas, New York, Mexico City, Shanghai, and also in California. My practice is focused primarily on energy and corporate M&A securities type projects.
All right, let's go into Mexico a little bit. Mexico has opened up their oil and gas sector to foreign investment, as you know. Can you give us some background? Like, what is Mexico's goal in terms of time and production? What do they want to see happen?
Sure. Well, what has happened in Mexico over the last decade is that production has dropped from about 3.5 million barrels of oil a day to about 2.5 million barrels of oil. So one of the first things they want to do is be able to increase oil production. Mexico is heavily reliant on the revenues that come from oil production. The second thing that Mexico needs, and one of the main reasons for Mexican energy reform, is that the demand for gas has been outpaced by production in Mexico. And it is a key to the manufacturing sector and producing efficient energy.
All right, let's get into a little bit of a financial question here. What terms are they talking about in terms of royalty rates, taxes, ownership split, etc.?
Sure. What happens in the bids is that the Mexican government announces at the bid, once the bids are unsealed, what the percentage is going to be for the operating profit that will belong to the state. So, for example, in the first call and first round, the announcement was that the state would take anywhere from 25 to 40% of operating profits. So I think that's kind of the range that you're looking for some of these. But then again, it will also depend on the type of activities and the type of contracts that the government is going to offer in these calls. And at the end of the day, CENER, which is the Secretary of Energy, with the help of the Secretary of Finance, will set the terms, the economic terms and the contractual terms for the blocks.
All right, Ricardo, I understand there were some hiccups on the first auction. So how was that one run, and what can they do to improve that process in the future?
Well, it depends on your point of view. From my perspective, looking at this, the CNH, which is the Commission of National Hydrocarbons, which ran the auction process, ran an incredibly transparent process. So for me, and for a lot of people, that was just a huge step in the way that all of this was run, transparent. The rules were clear. Everybody played under the same rules. Hiccup from the perspective of the outcome, it was somewhat disappointing. Out of the 14 areas that were offered, only two bids were awarded. So I think even the Mexican government was expecting not an incredibly successful round, but they were expecting probably 30 to 35% of the blocks to be awarded. What are the reasons for this? It's kind of hard to say. The price of oil has dropped quite a bit, so maybe some of these areas were not as attractive as other areas. Maybe a lot of the majors are waiting for the deep water and ultra deep water blocks instead of these shallow water blocks. So there's a lot of different reasons why this was not as successful as it probably could have been.
Okay, and will there be changes in the way the auction's done in the future? Or you just think those factors played into why it might not have been as successful as they thought it might be?
Well, going back to the hiccups, I mean, one of the great things that we keep seeing is that the Mexican government is responding. They're responding to comments from industry, they're responding to hiccups in the process, and they're trying to create more flexible terms in the bid packages. So I think
to make it more attractive.
To make it more attractive. So there's stumbling blocks, but they're learning, and I think it will be a better result for Mexico and a better result for the companies that are bidding on the blocks.
All right, in terms of acreage, do you think they'll open up onshore acreage to U.S. shale operators north of the border?
Absolutely. Mexico does not have the resources, the technology to be able to explore these areas. In fact, when the first timelines came out, the unconventional blocks were also going to be awarded, in 2014.
Okay.
So things have slowed down a little bit. The price of oil, again, has not helped. I think there is a lot of interest to get the northern region opened up for the unconventional shale plays. The problem is, again, price of oil. It's not very economic to do right now. Another challenge for Mexico is there's a lack of infrastructure. There's not enough pipelines. You have some security issues. There's scarcity of water. So there's other things in place that will further push back the timeline for the unconventional. But I think those will be opened up next year.
All right, let's talk about risk. You mentioned a couple of things right there, but let's talk about the political risk. What's the political risk of a deal with Mexico?
Well, it depends on who you ask. In my opinion, Mexico is a stable country. It has a good political establishment. As we've seen over the last two presidencies, it's been a very democratic process. The Mexican financial system is stable. The banking system is stable. They push for open market reforms in a lot of different sectors, not just oil and gas. So I think the political risk is very low, especially when you compare it to other countries around the world where there's a lot of E&P activity and a lot of interest. So I think it's negligible.
Now, you mentioned security risks and other risks in the prior answer. What would you say to someone who's a little tentative or a little afraid of investment in Mexico? You're an expert in the area. What would you say to someone who's kind of waffling?
Well, I think there is some risk in some northern regions, but the government is trying to act in a very positive fashion to deal with those things. They're also, with respect to the investment that this will attract from around the world, the more investment, the more opportunities, then, that is something that can be used against the fight of the delinquency and the issues where people are trying to make quick money, because there's a lack of jobs in some of those regions. But also I would say to people, there's a lot of investment in West Africa, and West Africa has the same or even worse problems than Mexico when it comes to violence and militias and other forms of controlled violence.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much, Ricardo Garcia-Moreno. He is a partner with Haynes and Boone. I'm Angie Austin with Oil and Gas 360. Thanks very much, Ricardo.
Thank you very much.